Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. We have a special guest with us here today. It's Bryce from Warm Audio. You've been hanging out here at Sweetwater for a few days.
Yeah, it's been fun. Hanging out with the reps and talking about some of the new gear.
Right. So Warm Audio, man, you guys have just since 2011, it's just skyrocketed. The number of products and the acclaim you've received and the awards and things. I mean, it's been really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we love what we do, and we like to work hard too. A lot like Sweetwater. Not to say we're anywhere near your level, but I think, carry some of that same ethics. We love to come into the office and work as hard as we can and think of new ideas every day. So.
Right. So prior to 2011, were you a studio guy? Were you a musician? How did you get into this world?
So I was a guitar player in high school. I recorded a couple albums with my band in some project studios, and was never really fully happy with the quality I was getting. And so that's kind of what led me to start engineering and recording other people, and which eventually led to building my own equipment and soldering and playing around, tinkering.
Right. Did you have a formal education in electronics, or did you pick it up as you went?
So I did take one semester of electrical engineering, and that was it. And then from there, I learned the basics of reading schematics, but I do consult with engineers a lot because my knowledge is limited. So.
Right. So those first products that you were building, were you things you couldn't afford? Why were you building gear, I guess is the question. Why did you start building your own gear?
That's kind of what it was. The very first preamp that I plugged into that rocked, that I loved, was, I've told everybody this story, was an Avalon 737, and it just kind of woke me up to what preamps could do.
Right.
Because I had some budget microphones, $200, $300 microphones, but through an Avalon 737, it was like, whoa, these things came alive. And I wanted to create something that was more affordable. So my first preamp that I bought for myself, the 737 was in someone else's studio, was a clone that somebody else built by hand and sold on eBay. And I loved it, and I was like, I could build this. So I started pulling it apart and finding where the components were made, and went from there.
Right. So how did that lead into the WA12, which was your first product, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So one of those products that I purchased from that guy was a API or 312 style mic pre. And I started playing around with different transformer brands and calling up Cinemag and Jensen and say, hey, you familiar with this? And they're like, oh, of course, everybody builds those, and this is what you should use. And just trying different components till I found what I loved.
So you just developed it along the way. Was there an earlier version before you got to the version that you first released?
Yeah, so the first version was called the Sledgehammer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that was the first company name. It was Sledgehammer Audio. And from there, it developed into Warm Audio, just changed the name and looked into doing mass production. I realized that if I didn't make several at a time, I couldn't get the price down to where I felt it was reasonable and affordable to musicians. Right.
And of course, that's a driving factor with Warm Audio, is delivering that quality, but bringing it in at really ridiculously low prices. I mean, I remember when I first saw the WA12 and the Tone Beast, the TB12 first came out, everybody was saying, how can you possibly be selling these for this price and still delivering that kind of quality?
Yeah, that was an exciting time when that came out. And actually what it was is I had to borrow some money from a friend to build those first 100 WA12s. And that friend put on some interest on that loan, and my wife was kind of freaking out and didn't want me to do it. And so in my head I said, I have to make something at a price that is just so good, I know I can't mess this up, was basically what it was. And I had to explain it to my wife, like, no, I don't think you understand. Similar microphone preamps like this cost like 3 times as much, or whatever it was at that time. And I got her on board with the idea that even if we struggle to sell these, there's got to be some way, because it will be such a great value. And then when that did well, I was like, I wonder if we can do that with everything. Every new product, it has to be like, oh my gosh, that will be a no-brainer. The whole industry will love it at that price.
Right. There's always the appellation that goes along with that, though. There's always it's great for the price. How do you respond to that? Because I don't think that's necessarily the case with the Warm Audio gear.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really great, period. And we have people buy our recreations, compare them to vintage units, compare them to the modern, very expensive units, and in some cases say I actually liked it more. Some cases I liked it a little less, but in general, it's right in there.
Right.
So yeah, it's not just good for the price, it's good. And so there have been some opportunities to make stuff that was really affordable, but if it wasn't at our standard of being fully pro, then we won't make it. So it has to be fully pro, in our opinion, that a professional would pick it up and use it in a pro studio.
Right, definitely. So one of the challenges with recreating, especially vintage microphones, is that each one is really different. It's difficult to say this is the standard for that. How do you choose the one that you reference when you're working on a recreation?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were coming out with the WA87. We compared it to several vintage microphones, and I think it was 3 exactly. Some from a rental department, some from a friend that owned them, and they all sounded a little different. So some sounded a little brighter on the top end,
right?
Some had more low end. And this may sound kind of funny, but our goal is to try to sort of get it right in the middle of all 3 of them and say, hey, if people can find aspects of all these vintage units that sound like ours, then we're probably getting in the right zone.
Right. And you've since then, speaking of microphones, come out with a number of different models. The latest one is the WA84.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was just put on the cover of Sound on Sound, which is pretty exciting. So there's an article to read in there. But that's based on the classic KM84. And what's exciting about that is a lot of small condenser microphones nowadays don't use transformers anymore. And we're transformer freaks, in case you haven't been able to tell. Go to our website. We have pictures of them everywhere. We show the insides of the products. Look at these big transformers. So in small condenser microphones, there's not a lot of room to put a transformer. But the classic KM84 had one. We wanted to use one, and everybody says to us, this just sounds different than any other small condenser that we own, and that's what's exciting about it.
Right. It offers you a different flavor, but it still gives you that vintage touch, that vintage
Absolutely.
style that of course made that microphone so popular for so many different applications. So tell us a little bit about the transformers. How do you source, because you use a lot of different transformers, and what is it that a transformer brings to a product?
That's a good question. So one of the first preamps that I purchased on eBay, I told you the story about, was a Neve style preamp. And it used Carnhill transformers. And the fellow who built it and sold it to me, I had several conversations with him after I purchased it. And I said, this sounds like a tube preamp. This sounds like tubes. This is what I thought tubes should sound like. And he said, that's why people love transformers. They kind of do a similar thing. They make things sound a little bit vibier. They add mojo. They sometimes make it sound wider in the stereo image. It rolls off the peaks and valleys. It saturates smoothly. And so ever since then, I've kind of loved transformers. I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't tubes that I was looking for. It was transformers. And so we work with several suppliers. Cinemag's the one we work with the most. David Gearin, the owner over there, is very smart. And so any project we come up with, he not only designs the transformer for us, he'll put it in the product, in the prototype, tweak it, play with it, get it to where he thinks it's just perfect. And it's been a great relationship.
Right, yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
One component. So I'm always curious as well, we in the age we live in with so many plugins that emulate things and the digital processing we can do, what is the attraction of looking back at all this vintage gear?
There's a lot of things. I think one of them is people want an analog experience, and not only in the terms of an analog signal path, they want to touch things. They want to grab buttons. They want to see a dimly lit VU meter with a real needle. There's something to it that is part of the process. Same thing, like when playing a guitar. If that guitar feels great, the way you hold it and touch it, you play better. And I think that translates in the recording studio for the artists that are recording too. If they're seeing the meters move and they're feeling that tone right on the way in as they're tracking, they perform better, and the engineers see that, and everybody's a little bit more excited.
Right. Yeah, that feel, it's funny how that translates to an impression of quality, because just to give you one example with your products, you have some of the microphones where the body is milled from a solid piece of brass, which gives it a really solid, robust feel.
Yeah.
You just feel good putting that in front of a source.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So it is interesting the way that that translates back and forth across there. So is there a vintage line that you haven't explored that you'd like to get into?
There are a lot of recommendations that come to us every day through email, through people here at Sweetwater. We're taking all of them very seriously. We can only do so many so quickly. But I would just say keep your eyes open for more of the classics that haven't been recreated, that aren't available at an affordable price right now. We're probably going to tackle all of them at some point.
Right,
So.
right. Do you see yourself moving into the mixer realm as well? We were talking a little bit about this last night.
You know, a lot of people have recommended that to us, and I think that's something we want to explore. We haven't seriously explored it yet, but after all of the recommendations, I think there might be an opportunity there to look into it.
Well, a whole broad world of analog gear. I mean, there's a lot of, maybe you should make tape machines.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe not.
No, I think it would be awesome. All that stuff is just exciting. It's just fun.
Yeah, and it is, as you mentioned, it is a different experience working with it. So you've had some exciting news lately. I saw that you are building a new headquarters, and it's going to have a studio in it, right?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of my dream, and my wife gave me a bit of a hard time when I first announced it. She's like, wait a second, you manufacture audio equipment. You don't record people every day. Why are you building such a nice studio? And my answer to her and to everybody else is that, you know, we don't want to forget about our roots and what we love. Mm-hmm. We want to have access to a studio for our employees, for the community around us in Austin. We believe it will be the nicest or one of the nicest studios in Austin, Texas. And so keeping that a part of our culture is really important to us.
Will you be operating this as a commercial studio, or will it be a private facility that you'll be working in?
It'll be both.
Yeah.
So we will rent it out. We work with a lot of artists. We create video content. If you go to our website, we make music videos. We're almost like a label. We get contacted by artists all the time that say, I've seen your videos and they're amazing. Can we work with you? And we give them free recordings and free videos, and then we promote them, and it's just part of the brand. We've created this culture, and so we want to continue that and continue giving back to the audio and music industry.
What is it about Austin? Why has it become such a music center over the years?
You know, a lot of, some might say it's all Willie Nelson. You know, he started, I don't know, but it's just a great place for live music. It's known as the live music capital of the world. Sure. Lots of venues. A lot of tours will stop in there on their way from San Antonio to Dallas, and yeah, it couldn't be there couldn't be a better place for us to have our headquarters.
Right. Yeah, that opportunity to work with artists using the products and have them in a great studio like you're building, it's going to be awesome for developing new things.
Very exciting, yeah.
Bryce, we're so excited to have you here at Warm Audio. It's been a great partnership between our companies, and happy we had a chance to sit down and chat with you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. And thank you for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.